General Motors stock price hit a 3-year low, as in it hit its lowest point in 3 years within the last week. Comparing GM's current stock price, investors believe GM is basically a basket case of a company in comparison to companies like even Ford. In fact, today, General Motors is valued at less than half of what Ford is based on price to earnings ratios, which are basically the way that investors kind of vaguely look at a company to determine its wealth. So why is General Motors being pummeled by investors? Why are investors lacking so much confidence in the company that they think it is worth less than any other car company currently almost in the whole world based on its price to earnings ratios? Well, it could be something to do with the decisions General Motors has made recently. It's firing people in almost every department: EV department, software department, car manufacturing, parts manufacturing. And at the same time, unions are saying you need to pay us 40% more or our staff are not going to work for you. Right now, GM is almost certainly in a crisis. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. And I've got to say, I am a little bit surprised to see, in particular, GM's electric car production this year. I think investors still, for some reason, naively believe Mary Barra's promises. That Mary Barra has promised EV production would be far higher than what it has been this year. Now, to be fair on GM, Ford did the same thing. Ford promised they'd be hitting a production run rate of 500,000 by the end of this year. Obviously, they are miles away from that. General Motors, similar sort of thing, miles away from their production estimates. Lucid, same thing. So you've got 3 different car companies that are just so far away from what they promised that they would do. Surprisingly to me, the media doesn't seem to pay any interest whatsoever to this. If Tesla had came on and said, you know what, we're going to sell 5 million EVs this year, and their current run rate of 1.8 million, then the media would be saying, this is disgraceful. You promised this, you're not even coming close to that. But that analogy I just gave you of 5 million compared to the 1.8 million that they're at is nowhere near comparing the promises made by General Motors, Ford, and Lucid, which they've actually come to this year. In other words, the delivery from these EVs from these car companies is so far below what these companies promised. It's shocking to me that the media is completely giving this a wide berth and not even mentioning this whatsoever. But why is it then that GM is being treated worse than these other car companies? Why is it that investors lack so much confidence in the stock? Well, a series of things have happened over the last week, in fact, over the last month, that I think have influenced what people think about the company. For one, of course, we already know General Motors has fired thousands and thousands of staff in the United States this year. Now, one big problem just crept up, and this problem hasn't really been reported on. I haven't, in fact, found any information on this problem in major news sites, especially not EV websites. In fact, this problem is going to cost General Motors a huge amount of money. Now, more than 20 million General Motors vehicles contain faulty airbag inflators. And while yes, it's probably true that the manufacturer of these airbags, which are made by Tennessee-based ARC or ARC Automotive, may have to pay some of this, the truth is here that they probably won't be able to. It's more than likely they'll have to declare bankruptcy because the problem is so big. Now, apparently, there are at least 52 million defective inflators installed in vehicles from a variety of car companies. GM is affected the worst with over 21 million. In other words, ARC will simply declare bankruptcy. There's no possible financial way that they could pay for this. Probably restructure themselves at some point in 6 months' time. General Motors with the bill. This is going to cost them billions of dollars. Now, at the same time, of course, the union debacle is insane. GM has just cut 180 software validation and project management jobs in Michigan. So that is a huge number, right? You'd think they're the kind of people that General Motors would want, but maybe not. So all of this has led to General Motors stock plummeting a further 6% last week. And after that happened, Unifor launched a strike at 3 General Motors Canada operations, meaning that General Motors is now facing a unilateral strike in 2 countries. I mean, Canada and the US. To be fair, General Motors makes almost nothing in terms of profit now from its external operations outside of North America. So what do you do if you're General Motors? What do you do? Because GM is facing a crisis in China. Their sales in China are collapsing, right? General Motors is a very small bit player now in Europe compared to what it used to be because it simply wasn't making much profit. So it decided to kind of minimize its presence in Europe. It's basically a North American car company. And in North America, Canada and the US, it's in strife. I mean, basically, the unions are saying you need to drastically increase wages because it's fair to say, for example, that General Motors underpays enormously at their battery factories where they're unable to increase battery production because they're underpaying and no one wants to work there. Now, if you don't agree with that, then answer me this. $16 per hour. You make more money working at McDonald's than you do at a General Motors battery factory. That, in my opinion, is part of the reason for why GM are being targeted more than Ford and Stellantis by the unions. Yesterday, General Motors laid off an additional 800 workers because of the UAW strike. Now the number of layoffs at General Motors because of the strike is 2,300. This is in addition to 4,000 other workers General Motors have laid off this year. And this is in addition to the fact that General Motors have revealed a very challenging reality for them. They've said they can't make an EV priced from any number up to $40,000 and make a profit. So General Motors are telling us, don't worry, because we're going to mass manufacture the Chevy Equinox EV. This will be our game changer. This will take on Tesla. And the media are telling us these stories. It's all Disney myth. It's pure fantasy. You can make this stuff up and make some sort of fantastical fiction story about it because, frankly, it's nonsense. Why is it nonsense? Because for some bizarre reason, the media doesn't like to give you facts. Mary Barra said herself, General Motors said themselves, GM cannot produce an EV priced under $40,000 and sell it at a profit until 2027. So what does General Motors do between now and then? They don't have any plans for using lithium iron phosphate batteries. They don't have any plans for using gigacasting or megacasting or structural battery packs. In my opinion, General Motors is kind of screwed. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.